This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb. Hello and welcome. Welcome to Get Inspired on Dr. Barb podcast. This podcast is very special because we talk to incredible guests who have something to contribute and certainly say a lot about how we can improve education. We discuss all kinds of new practices and ways to improve experiences for children. And the topic we're going to talk about today is very close to my heart because I am passionate about therapy dogs and other therapy animals and including them in educational places such as schools, because I think, and I've seen it with my own eyes, they can do together with their partners who have these dogs, they can really make a huge difference for children and anybody who works in school too, because it's actually not only affecting children. So that's why this topic is so incredible for me. And today we have two amazing ladies. One of them is currently a teacher, a classroom teacher. Her name is Ginette Garrity. And another incredible lady is Katie Barron, whom I know for quite some time. I think we met on social media, but we also got a chance to see each other in person, right? It was about like a couple years ago, which was really, really cool and amazing. And although I have not known Ginette for a very long time, but I feel like I did, like I've known Ginette for a long time because these two amazing ladies are working together. Welcome on my show, Get Inspired with Dr. Barb, Ginette and Katie.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it and I appreciate your time. And just to introduce you to our wonderful audience, we might have a teacher, parent, anybody who is interested in education, and I think everybody should be. And so, Ginette, you are a classroom teacher and you currently work as a teacher of writing and reading. And Katie, you are therapy dog advocate. You have your own therapy dog, famous archer, and I know and another dog might be therapy dog too, we hope, soon. So you and Archer are a team, therapy dog team.
Yes.
And you're very active on social media. We've been following each other and you post a lot of tips and also a lot of advocacy as far as including therapy dogs on social media. So ladies, if you could add something to your introduction, I would appreciate it.
You go first, Ginette.
All right. So I am Ginette Garrity. I've been in education now for 25 years. I'm always looking for something new and exciting to bring to my students to both develop that love of reading and that love of writing. So it was a perfect opportunity when Katie reached out, to bring Archer to the classroom to use with actual lessons because the children know Archer inside and out. He's constantly coming into the room. But to bring him in to help show the children that learning goes beyond the walls is something that I know we're both very passionate about.
Very cool. Thank you.
And I'm Katie Barron, and I am, as Barbara said, therapy dog advocate. I started writing about Archer's therapy dog journey when he became a therapy dog. And I started writing on Instagram, and I just was really inspired by Barbara's book. It's the one right behind you, Barbara, about how to include therapy dogs in actual lessons and curriculum. And because before that, I was just like, they're fun and they're friendly and they're comforting. But once I read Barbara's book, it really inspired me to reach out to Ginette and see if we could do more.
This is absolutely amazing because, and we should say it, you also an author. You wrote a fabulous book, and we should talk at least a little bit here too, because it's very important, and the book is very original. It has a different concept. But thank you so much for the compliments. But that's exactly why I wrote the book, because I think it's important that. When we think about like innovation in education, and I think many people think always about like technology, right?
Right.
That you innovate, so that means you gotta bring more technology. but there is other ways. And actually they don't have to cost school anything because this is volunteering work that we do, right? Bringing therapy dogs to the school. But you can create such a better collaborative, I think, partnership between the school, the teachers, and other people who are not teachers, but they bring their own expertise. Katie has her own expertise because Katie, I mean, you were not a teacher, but you had a certain job and you have outside expertise. I mean, kids could even learn from you about this. I've seen kids learning so much from me as an outsider, someone who brings my dog to the classroom. That's how I learned from me about that they can write a book and publish this. They were learning it from me, not from the teacher. I mean, they learn from the teachers, but the teacher is also an authority. And it's a different learning. And then we should ask Ginette about this more. It's a different learning than someone comes in and they just learn from them without like, this is learning. They just learning by listening to this person, right?
It's so true. It's such an authentic experience for them, and you really get the chance to see the kids take control, of the lesson and their own learning. So it's a great avenue to explore.
And the teacher has a role in this because just by the fact that you are letting Katie in and letting kids learn from her without actually learning formally, this is where the teacher's expertise really is so important because you're letting this happen. You understand that there's other ways of learning, not just by formally teaching. And that's what's amazing. And we need these kind of teachers and we need to spread these ideas. That's why I was so happy to hear when I found out that Katie is using some of these and like modifying these ideas and just coming up with her own ideas, and you ended up coming with your own idea that I was just so happy to see it. And of course, to have you on the show. Could you tell us how long you've been working together and what type of interactions were taking place as far as how Archer was included before you started collaborating in a little bit more creative ways?
Last school year, not this past school year, I was in the classroom when Ginette was doing a session on compare and contrast. And having just read your book, I was like, ooh, let's compare and contrast with Archer.
Yeah.
So we started with kids who had dogs. So Archer is big, my dog is small. Archer has long hair, my dog has short hair. But some of the kids had cats. So it's compare and contrast your cat. Well, how are they similar? Well,
Yeah.
Archer has a tail, my cat has a tail. And then there were kids who didn't have pets. So then it got really funny because it's like Archer has brown eyes and my dad has brown eyes.
Yeah.
Like hilarious. Remember that, Jeanette?
I
It was so
do.
funny.
Do. And that's, I think, what made it such an easy connection is Archer was always coming in, for visits. And then Katie would always ask as she stepped inside the room, like, oh, what are they learning today? What are you working on? And then we just find a natural way to make it fit. So not only were the kids enjoying a visit, they didn't even realize that they were adding on to their learning experience. We
Right.
get so excited to hear what's the question going to be today?
This is really cool. What I hear you saying is because I know that Katie speaks a lot about my work here too. But Katie, you were naturally entering the classroom with because it's like as a therapy dog team, we don't know like we're supposed to be like invisible, kind of, I guess. I don't know. We never have these like rules, like what
Right.
you really supposed to be doing, right? That's not what the therapy dog organizations are focusing on, unfortunately. And then you enter, you're supposed to be invisible because the kids are learning. So you're like thinking, well, I can't really distract anybody. I better not really say anything. And if they say something, that's because they interact with my dog. So they are allowed to, unless the teacher tells them otherwise. But here you go. I mean, why
Well,
not?
there's two things here. One, Jeanette has always been very welcoming of Archer into the classroom. Not all
Exactly.
teachers are. Jeanette has always been very welcoming. And two, I always wanted to be a teacher. Always. Since I was like in 8th grade, I've wanted to be a teacher. And that dream never came to reality. I was a Girl Scout leader for 22 years. That's how I focused that energy. And when I stopped being a Girl Scout leader, I became a therapy dog handler. And that was my outlet. And I just naturally, that's what I want to do. I like
Wow.
interacting with people.
This is really cool because Somebody might say it was easy for me to collaborate with my collaborating teacher, with Lucinda, because I am a teacher. So I already kind of knew like what to do. But this is not the case. Katie is not a teacher. Your job was just totally and you retired from your job, by the way, but your job was totally different. Nothing to do with teaching, nothing to do with
No,
kids, right?
no.
Like far from
I was a
that.
project manager for a major insurance company.
Right. But that just proves that anybody who has a wonderful therapy dog and is interested and goes to school with the dog for a reason, they must like this environment, right? If they did not like it, they wouldn't be going there, I assume. So they naturally will be also curious about like just like what the kids are doing. I mean, it's natural. You see kids working on the project. I go around and it's like, oh, what are you working on? You're working so hard. They want to share right away. They will share about their dogs. They will share about their pets. They will share also about the work they're doing. So what Ginette did is just kind of like naturally kind of allow this to develop, and it wasn't a disturbance for you that Katie was interested in what kids were doing.
Never, never. Yeah, the kids always welcomed it. Last year's group really connected with Archer. I mean, to the point they'd see Archer and have to make an arch with their hands to like welcome Archer in and out. So we really just let it become this natural, fluid learning environment where Katie and Archer would jump in for the day. It was so welcomed. The other classes would be, where was he today? And it was like, oh, he was in period 2. But they just did. They latched right on, and it's amazing to see how it just builds on their learning experience because really it's just a natural fit. And Katie just has this easy way of just coming right in and joining right in.
Yep.
Whatever we're doing, she's welcoming in. And even if it's we're reading a story, it's like we find a way with the characters or character traits just to pull it in.
So prior to Katie, I understand, suggesting doing something different, you already had this awesome relationship with each other. And that's really how it started. And then it was then easy for Katie to suggest something, right? That's how it went down.
Well, and then over last summer break, I reached out to Ginette via email and was like, this worked out so well. Why don't we try to do something a little more formal this year?
Mm-hmm.
And so Ginette was like, yay, let's do it.
Let's
Okay, I got to figure it out now.
Right. Where could this fit naturally and just really inspire the kids?
Yeah. So then I left it in Ginette's capable hands and she
there was
figured it out.
Yeah, it was kind of a dry unit that the kids I knew struggled on the prior year. So it was like, why don't we make an interactive lesson in the nonfiction unit with descriptive writing? So at that point, I just developed like a little bit of like an interview sheet, and then I let the kids create their own interview questions. They were diving into Katie's website. They knew her from the elementary school when she would visit there, and they really prepared for the whole lesson and questions they wanted to ask and learn. And their task was to create a little website for Archer and some descriptive writing that Katie could include on her website.
Very cool. So basically, just started in a very small way. Just how about if we do something like this?
Yeah.
And that's it. Trying it, and then kind of reaching out again. Maybe we can do a little bit more, right? But it just needs to be at first like a really good relationship between the two. Between the two people, basically, essentially. Very, very cool. So, if you could describe a little bit this activity, let's say if we have a therapy dog team or a teacher who is just listening to us right now and saying, oh, wow, what kind of activity are they talking about? Maybe I could try it while we have a therapy dog team. Maybe I can try it with my children. If you could describe the activity, that would be great.
Sure. So Katie and Archer came in, and the kids had an interview sheet where they had created their top 3 questions, each of them that they wanted to ask. And Katie fielded those questions and answered them. While they did, they had to use both their listening skills as well as observation skills. They had a spot on their sheet where they could actually draw out Archer. We
Yes.
wanted to know, using all sensory details, what Archer looks like, sounds like, smells like. They had to touch Archer. What does he feel like? And they also had to build on their vocabulary using content-specific vocabulary that Katie was using in the therapy field. And they learned so much about Archer
Wow.
after they completed the sheet and they felt they had enough information. They, then had some fun asking to see some tricks that Archer was able to do in the school. So we gave them some time then just to because it was a different setting for them. They're used to Archer coming in as the therapy dog and just having Archer and having conversation, where this time they actually were the reporters in some ways, where they were going to have to produce some work. So it was a really nice learning experience for them. And then it gave them the opportunity. They were so vested in the writing at that point. They couldn't wait to write about Archer.
Yes, because
My
I've seen,
favorite
yeah.
was when they asked me how tall Archer was, and I didn't know.
We had to
So
go
we
to the
got out the
math teacher.
yardstick and measured him.
Yeah, we ran to the math teacher's classroom for a yardstick because that one caught us, off guard. But we
There was
did,
something you didn't know about Archer, but isn't it interesting
and now
how
we know.
and now you know, so you've learned something too. Really, really incredible, and definitely we will when we talk about where our viewers can follow you. I'm sure you might get some interest too as far as the activity. Why do you think this works so well? Because I've seen when Katie was posting on social media, I've seen like the kids' engagement, right? And when they engaged. And when anybody is engaged in learning, you can learn a lot. You can even learn subjects you don't like when you engage,
That's
It's
true.
so true. I think
right?
even the most reluctant writers, because they're so engaged and they love Katie and Archer so much, that they saw this, just as a fun experience. And sometimes that's where the best learning occurs, when you pull everything else away and they just realize, I can do this. Like, this is so much fun. That fun they don't even realize is the learning experience that you're hoping for.
It is
Well,
a lot
and
of fun.
we ended up going in 3 times for the interviews so that we could hit all of the classes and all of the kids, because some of the kids were absent or whatever. And we wanted to make sure all of the kids got the opportunity to interact with Archer. And then we also went in and they presented their web page designs, which they made like a poster that showed, and some of them worked individually, some of them worked in groups, but they got to present their poster to Archer and show it to us.
Yeah.
And they were so proud. And it was so amazing. They did such great work. It was wonderful.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of engagement. And when you think about like why is this so engaging? To me, number one thing, they have attachment to the dog, right? They have a connection to the dog and to the partner of the dog, Katie. That's important, right? And without Katie, Archer would not be able to come in, right?
Right.
And you also a part of the classroom, and that's what kids feel too from their teacher, from Ginette, that these two, the dog and the person, Katie, are part of this classroom community. So that's really important. So it's already creating a different atmosphere, and it's bringing the outside natural world to the classroom, because dog is this element that is not usually a part of the school. And they can write about something that they actually know quite well, at least to a certain extent, because they already had a chance to feel how Archer feels, what his fur feels like, how he sniffs, licks, whatever. They already, right? They have the knowledge of the dog, and that's what builds the connection. And we're just trying to figure out, like, why is this so much fun? And also familiarity with the dog too. And it makes the writing so much easier, even for those who are struggle with that. They can't like write a sentence, but all of a sudden with help, they can produce even substantial piece of writing.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jeanette, is happening?
It is. It's amazing to see that when they're invested, when they take control, over the lesson, there's just so much more buy-in. and they didn't want to disappoint Katie or Archer. They had this goal, and to know that their work would then be shown to the world, whether it's on the website or whether it's Katie and Archer coming in or the principals stopping by to see what they've done. There's a lot of buy-in compared to just here's a grade on a paper and here's some suggestions. When their work they know is going somewhere, they take so much pride in their work.
And I
This
did.
is,
I
yeah.
posted their work on my website
They were
for
so
the world to
excited.
see.
Well, this is definitely very cool. So they've been published, right?
Yes.
So yeah, and there is so much into it. Just one thing leads to another. Really amazing. What do you think you are going to do next? Or I should say, what does
I
Archer
know.
have in plans?
It's so funny, Katie, because when we were in the room together, we were talking. The lesson was such a success. We're like, all right, we've got to add poetry next time. So that is our goal for next year moving forward, not only to do this nonfiction descriptive writing, but now to build Archer in for a whole poetry unit that we can do using the famous Archer.
This is really cool. Poetry unit is amazing. We just recently did, what was that? Concrete poetry.
Oh.
So what the kids did, everybody outlined Carmel's shape according to how they saw Carmel. Everybody sees the dog in a different way. Some of them were used even internet to find like golden doodle shape or golden doodle sort of image to then create the shape. The shapes were cute, incredible, and some of them were funny because someone's shape of Carmel, it looked like a hedgehog or something like that. It was like spiky kind of thing. We were laughing. It was just so cute. It was funny. It was just so cute. And then they were filling the shape with things about Carmel. So it was a lot of, and they actually loved it a lot. And then they were reading this to each other. We were all laughing too, of course, as you can imagine. So poetry, I think it's amazing, and kids like it. So with the dog, I think they're going to love it even more. Is the lesson somewhere on your website, Katie? Maybe.
It's actually all on my website. I
Yeah.
took some video during the interviews and during the presentations, and so there is a link on my homepage to the lessons that from
Yeah,
my
that's great. So that's where we can send people to just learn more
Yeah.
about it.
It's just archerthetherapydog.com.
Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. And we can also mention it at the end. And then in my show notes, I will be able to include those links too. Very cool. So how long have you been working together? Only for a year or longer?
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
So it took a little bit to build the relationships, obviously, right?
Well, it's funny because I've known Ginette's mom
Yeah.
since my
That
kids
helped.
were in preschool.
Yeah, my
So
mom worked
I've
at the
known Ginette's
preschool.
mom for 30 years.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was just meant to
So,
be.
yeah. Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that, of course, I mean, this is amazing. This doesn't mean that someone who doesn't know the teacher's mom will not develop this relationship, right?
Right. Well, I've been Archer visits other schools, and
Yeah.
I've been talking to the 5th grade teachers in another local school about this program that we did with the nonfiction descriptive writing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to get them to do it with their 5th graders in the coming year. So hopefully we'll be able to spread the word.
Look at that, Katie. I
spread
mean,
it
your
out.
advocacy here just goes beyond limit right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, and I'm
Amazing.
working actually with one of the teachers to prepare a proposal for their Board of Ed to get a therapy dog in there regularly, because right now
Yeah.
they don't have one. We just go a couple times a year. So we'll see what happens.
But the one teacher, they already have therapy dog. It's just a matter of sort of no, they don't. It's going to be Archer, but you're just trying to convince them to do a little bit of more creative activity.
Well, they don't have a therapy dog at all right now.
Okay.
We went in as an author visit,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that's different. They're confused. Their Board of Ed is confused about the difference between a therapy dog and a facility dog.
Yeah.
So we need to talk to them about the difference, and so they can understand that a therapy dog has separate
Yes.
insurance and comes in, once a week, and is,
Yeah.
owned by the handler and is not the responsibility of the school. So we're going to have to work all that out.
That's so awesome. Once you also together, you're going to do this poetry unit. I would like to have you again on the podcast.
That would be
But
good.
that would be fun.
And Archer's, the book I wrote, as you said, it's unique. It's a read together book.
Yep. Can you tell us more
And that
about it?
one side is for kids and one side is adults. It was actually that format was inspired by a book of poetry that I read
Mhm.
to my kids called Joyful Noise, a poetry in two voices.
Yeah.
And it had a side for kids and adults, and that's what inspired that format.
This is just so, so super cool because I hear from, I remember from a director of one therapy organizations whom I met when we met in, where was this? New Jersey.
Yeah, yeah.
Borough, and that I just keep hearing a lot. You are just so lucky that you have a teacher like you have, that she is so, creative and open to experiment. And I'm saying, I know that, but there are more teachers like that. But what do you think, Jeanette, is the problem? Is the constraint or a roadblock for a teacher with starting something like that, even with the idea of even bringing the therapy dogs as they are, without even thinking about doing something creative? What do you think is the main problem that kind of prevents teachers from thinking in a little bit more wider ways of how to improve their own teaching, right? Because this is not, we're not talking about nitty gritty or
Right.
how you teach reading, how you teach writing, but we're talking about creating more holistic way of improving how kids can learn.
Absolutely. And I think, the biggest roadblock a lot of times is the curriculum and the time constraints that we face as teachers. Everything has to be taught in a certain time and everybody's watching that you complete it in that time. So it takes just looking at what's in your curriculum and how can you make it, because there is a way to fit it. And as you said, that's really where the learning takes place. So knowing that I had a nonfiction unit that has to get taught and looking back and being like, this is an area that my kids struggled in the past. Well, why not make this more authentic learning? I'm still teaching the curriculum. I'm still getting it done on time, but you're bringing in a new experience. And that's where it's going to fit with the poetry unit. And I'm sure we can get it to fit in a fiction unit. So it does take time. And I think it's great she reached out over the summer because we have a little bit more breathing room during
Yeah.
that time, where when we're stuck in the year, that timeline is already set. But I really think that's the biggest obstacle. Once your Board of Education approves a therapy dog in your school, there's so many ways you can utilize it. So I hope other teachers will kind of think outside the box and see that it does naturally fit. You could bring Archer into math or Spanish. There's
Yeah.
no limitation.
And anything, right? Basically,
Right.
basically anything. What I hear you saying is, and I totally agree with this, it's kind of a little bit of, it's a little bit of mindset on one hand, because
Absolutely.
your mindset might be, well, I have to cover all this,
Mhm.
and I have to be accountable for covering all that. It almost, and I understand that because there are constraints,
Right.
but this is almost in a way of thinking, but how can I do it in a little bit different way?
Mhm.
So it's not just covered, but it's actually kids can learn in more empowered ways.
Right.
They will still learn it, and they might even learn more beyond that.
Right. And I think that really comes true. I mean, we were lucky enough, our one assistant principal jumped right in. She was so excited to come see the lesson, and I think once others see, okay, like this does work and look how much the children are learning. This year, I don't think descriptive writing will be any problems because they couldn't wait to write about things they were passionate about after this experience. So it's just trying it, being willing to try things out. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. This was a perfect fit. So we really lucked out having Katie and Archer.
Amazing. But where do you think your mindset comes from then? I mean, is it something you've learned during your studies when you were learning to be a teacher? Is where does this come from that you more open, right? That maybe other teachers are. And again, this is not that this is teachers' fault. There is a lot of these outside constraints that are really in the way of thinking in a little bit different way, because teachers don't have as much agency. They are not as trusted as in somewhere like in Finland, right? That's where they work with all this agency. So it's not teachers' fault, but there are ways of kind of like breaking them.
It is true. There's ways to break around it. And I think that's something I've always done throughout my career. I've always looked for ways that, make learning authentic. It's not just in the book or it's not just all technology. So, especially with this idea, we bring authors in, we bring guest speakers. So why not bring in a therapy dog and make Archer part of the lesson? It's just a natural fit. So there are ways. And I think sometimes when somebody opens the door, you're able then to think as a teacher and say, oh, wait, I could do that. What if I brought in, and kids love animals. They just,
They do.
such a natural thing. They want to bring in all their pets. And it's like, no, 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 we can't. But we're lucky enough as a district to have Archer. So this is a great resource. And Katie volunteers her time. As she said, I have 3 classes that rotate, and she's kind enough to come to all 3 so they get the same experience.
This is amazing, and also lucky that Archer is willing to do as much of this, right? Because
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, it can change with dogs too, and right, and they eventually. I mean, I hope that Archer will just do it as long as possible,
Me
right?
too.
But
Me too.
I wanted to ask Katie also. Katie, what do you think? What else would you thinking in terms of like I don't know, dreaming or thinking about like what specifically Archer or other therapy dogs? What would you like them to? How would you like them to be involved in school in more creative ways? Are there some aspects of learning you would like to try with Archer as far as his contribution to students learning? What do you think they could learn with Archer? What else they could? What do you think?
There is so much. I mean, if science, in science, there's so much we could do about, we could study of mammals, study of animals, study of anatomy.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much that could be done there. Even in math, weights and measures, so much there. Just even calculating a dog's age, which, all the kids are like 7 times 7 times
Yeah.
a dog's age. And it's like, no, that's an old formula. Here's the real formula. Now you have to calculate. And for the older kids, it's like, okay, he's this many, he's not
Yeah.
exactly 7 years old. How many months? Now we got fractions. So there's a lot there that could be done. In terms of writing, there's just so much that can be done with writing.
Yeah. My kids are
But
pushing
yeah.
for book 2. Archer goes to school, right, Katie? They want to.
Yes, yes. Well, and we are working on that.
They're like, come on.
But then I've been the science teacher, Mrs. Randall,
Yeah.
she was doing an academy on Rube Goldberg machines, where they do they take common objects and they do, ramps and stuff to make things happen. And the world theme this year was feed a pet, which was perfect.
Oh.
So they were making machines to feed Archer. So Archer was the judge. It was awesome. So he got to do that too, which was a lot of fun.
And I love that Archer attends so many school events too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Graduation last night. Like Archer
Yes.
leads in the graduating class.
Yeah, and he was at the field day the day before for the younger kids. And yeah, he does like to go to all the different stuff. And
Halloween
It's
dresses
just-
up for the district.
It's just, and then there was, I think I've seen Archer as lion, right? Quite a few times.
yes, he was a lion. Well, one of the academies was drama, and one of the groups of kids decided to incorporate Archer in the play that they wrote, and they wanted him to be a pet lion.
Oh my gosh. Look at that.
So that was really cute. But I love that the kids want to incorporate Archer.
Yeah, they do. They do.
And,
We just got
any way that he
yeah.
can be incorporated, I think is wonderful, because I think it helps them with their learning and their engagement in school, because school should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
It should be. It should be engaging, right? It should
Yeah, we go to Ginette's school on Mondays and the elementary school on Tuesdays. So I've had kids in the intermediate school tell me, I never am absent on Mondays because I want to see Archer.
be. That's awesome. We could certainly talk about this forever. I would like you to, if possible, if I could ask Ginette to give a teacher who is, let's say, like, a new classroom teacher, right? And they know that they have all the constraints and everything, but they also would like to cultivate like this experimental, creative mindset in their teaching. After all, that's why here we have Archer. Look at this. We have to advertise this episode, and if you want to see the golden retriever as therapy dog, then you gotta tune in on YouTube, because it's going to also go on YouTube. This is so cool. So, Ginette, what would you advise teacher like that, they want to do this for a good reason. They want to empower kids, but they feel the constraints too. What kind of words of encouragement would you have if you could speak directly to that person right now?
Absolutely. I mean, in the first year of teaching, you definitely feel a lot of the pressures, but I think starting small, if you're lucky enough to have a therapy dog in your district, think of an easy way, whether it's just the daily visits and then naturally what fits in. What are you working on? Just like Katie used to come in and start with that icebreaker question of what are you working on today? And just try to naturally build it in. And I think they'll find that lessons just fall into place because the learning's there. You see the joy in the students' eyes the minute Archer enters the classroom. You see it in the teachers' faces around the building. So, whether it's an art project where you draw Archer, whether, it's a science experiment that includes Archer in, just build it naturally in and you'll still be able to meet all those restraints. You'll find it's a natural learning environment.
That's an amazing encouragement. And as I was listening to Ginette, then I looked at Archer and I'm like almost ready to draw Archer too.
Right?
Because
Right? You're like, I got this.
he's posing
That's how
and
the
everything.
students feel.
I just have to find my pencil
Right.
somewhere.
And then you can label all the parts and there you go. Lesson complete.
I don't know last time when I drew, but it's time to go back
Right?
to it.
Right.
Amazing. And Katie, what kind of maybe tip, encouragement would you have for a teacher who, let's say, they are interested in starting something with therapy dogs, but they have no idea like how to initiate a collaboration like that? Like, where do you find therapy dogs? Some people don't have clue.
You know what? The easiest thing, Google is your friend. There are over 200 therapy dog organizations listed on the AKC website, American Kennel Club website. There are national organizations, there are local organizations, and we have 3 or 4 just in our little part of northern New Jersey. We have 3 or 4 organizations here. Some are therapy dog organizations. There's one that does different animals. They do therapy bunnies and chickens and stuff. So just reach out and do some research and find out what you can find out. The main thing is getting your Board of Education to approve it. It took me 9 months to get Board of Ed approval. Wow. Because they didn't understand therapy dogs and what we do and what we are. They had a teacher or 2 teachers that had seeing eye puppies that they would bring into the classroom, once a week. And they were like, oh, we don't need a therapy dog. We have them. And I'm like, well, no, that's a seeing eye puppy.
Right.
Yeah. So they don't understand, and getting the Board of Education to understand what a therapy dog is, what it does, and what the benefits are is the challenge.
And because we need to say it. I mean, the teacher cannot just, I'm just bringing therapy dog. You have to have administration. Yes. In my case, it was kind of easy because I just asked the principal and the principal said yes. There was no time for any kind of board approval. So we don't want to scare people, think that, oh, it's going to take you a year. It might. It just depends on how open the district is. In your case, they had issues with understanding therapy animals and it took them a long time. But in other cases, it might be just really super quick. Maybe also reading a little bit about it, just kind of like equip yourself with information about what therapy dogs are capable of doing together with their partners, right? How they can influence children's learning. So in that way, it would be easier to convince and just kind of try. Let's have one therapy dog in the school and let's see how it goes. So these are all wonderful tips. And also, Katie, what would you say to therapy dog teams who are doing incredible work, but they could try something a little bit different, try to just try to experiment a little bit, more creative activities, because they might do something more if they just think a little bit in different terms. How would you encourage them to try different things? Because they might have all kinds of activities, all kinds of ideas, but maybe they don't think it's appropriate. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think that for any therapy dog team that is questioning whether or not their ideas are valid would be to reach out to a teacher and say, do you think of this idea?
Yep.
and then go from there. When you're working in a school and you're working with many different teachers, there's always going to be a natural affinity with someone or someones that are just more, I don't know, whether they're more of an animal lover or whatever. There's just some teachers that you're going to click with more, and those are the teachers that you're going to want to work with more.
Yeah.
So talk
Just
to
like
them.
that.
I mean, Ginette and I have formed this wonderful relationship. There's another teacher at the school that I have formed a wonderful relationship with. She and I are working with in other things. So it's just,
Just
talk.
just
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 talk.
feel
Just talk.
feel the ground,
Right.
feel
Yeah.
the people a little bit. Like right now, this one's more open. So why don't I suggest something? Don't be afraid,
Yeah. Because a
right?
lot of times teachers haven't thought of it, so just the suggestion really helps open the doors for others.
But definitely not. Let's do the whole unit,
Right.
and it's like the middle of the year, and it's just like
Right.
not sure about that.
Right. That's a little overwhelming.
I think reaching out over the summer
Yeah. That was a great
For
is
the
point.
unit,
when there's downtime. I mean, I felt a little weird about it at first. I have to be
Right.
honest, because I was like, well, it's her vacation too.
yeah, I know.
But it was the only, like, you have teachers plan over the summer. I mean,
Right.
let's face
They
it,
do.
Right.
teachers really don't take vacation.
Right.
They work over the summer. They do.
Yeah, there is
It was
things to plan.
perfect because it does take some time, just to develop some of the things that are going to go along with the activity. So it was perfect.
Totally. I mean, amazing conversation. When would you tell our audience where they could potentially connect with you, follow you? That would be great.
Sure. I am on X, so that is an easy way. It's just Ginette Garrity, number one, just a one after it, Ginette Garrity 1. I also have a school email as well that if they'd like any of the activities or links to some of the things I've done with Katie, I can just send them as well. That's just garrity.ginette@byramschools.org.
Okay. Thank you. And Katie?
Actually, Archer and I are on Instagram as
Yeah.
Archer the Therapy Dog, all one word. We're also on Facebook, Archer Barron, and Archer's website is archerthetherapydog.com.
Thank you so much. Any parting words before we finalize?
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
thank
This has
you.
been wonderful.
You're very welcome. It was just so fabulous to be able to talk to you, to talk about these ideas, because they are very important. And we certainly would like to see more teachers, more therapy dog teams doing these activities, and more administrators being open to this, because they can create a better environment for everybody, including for themselves. I'm not going to hide. Principals, they love to see therapy dogs too. It makes them feel better too. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. This is Get Inspired with Dr. Barb.